Welcome to the Faculty of Humanities and Social Science Research Podcast Series at the University of Nottingham, Ningbo, China, the first Sino-Foreign university. I'm Dr. Mary Jane Ainsley, Associate Professor in International Communications.
And I'm Dr. Derek Irwin, Associate Professor of Applied Linguistics. We're coming to you from the Language and Pedagogy Laboratory here at the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences.
For this edition of the series, we are delighted to be joined by Dr. Lei Hao. Lei is a teaching fellow in digital media, communications, and cultural studies in the School of International Communication. He holds a PhD in media and communications from Goldsmiths College in the University of London.
Before joining UNNC, Lei taught communications at the University of Leicester, the University of Bedfordshire, and the University College Dublin. Lei's work examines how media culture and technologies have emerged as sites for the production and reproduction of hegemonic power, and he investigates how agents, institutions, and communities negotiate meaning and assert agency within these evolving spaces.
In 2024, Lei published the book Minzu as Technology, Ethnic Identity and Social Media in Post-2000s China with Palgrave Macmillan, which offers a critical examination of how technological dynamics of social media affect the materialization of ethnic identities.
Okay, now I get to ask the first question there.
That was a bit of a mouthful there.
But it's very interesting work, and I'm curious because you work much more in the cultural sphere than I do.
Yeah, well, Lei's actually in my school.
Yeah.
All right, so I have quite a bit of background into his work, and we've taught on the same courses before and all the rest, so I've been kind of looking forward to this for quite a while. Plus, I like the fact that he's from Goldsmiths. Have you ever been to Goldsmiths?
I haven't. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's a fantastic institution. I mean, all of those big sort of London uni colleges are fantastic, but Goldsmiths in particular is very strong in Asian studies and has some top professors there. So I do remember when Lei was coming and we found out that he was from Goldsmiths. It was all like, oh my goodness.
Well, I hope he's lived up to the hype. Certainly with this book, I think he has. I found it quite fascinating from a number of different perspectives, not least of which is the idea of ethnic identity as negotiated through technologies and new social medias, but also the idea of ethnic minority groups in China.
Yes. And there
using
are
these.
So many.
So many, yeah.
Do you
and it's
know
often
how many?
not understood.
I mean, there is kind of an official sort of designation, as I understand it,
There are 180 recognized ethnic minorities, are there not? Like?
Good Lord.
56.
56. Look at me making numbers up. I apologize.
Oh,
But initially, they are recognized more than 400 ethnic group.
Oh.
Because the technology identification program Chinese government incorporate actually influenced by Soviet Union, so they largely reduce the number down to 55 minority groups.
So this has changed over time.
Yeah, that changed over time. So Derek, you're absolutely right.
At one time, I might have been right.
Somewhere in the universe, at some point, Derek was right. Okay.
That is a point I'd love to return to.
We should also say, welcome, Lei.
Yes, thanks very much for joining us, Lei. Here we're talking about your work, but you're the expert on it, so maybe you can give us a brief synopsis of what you were trying to do with this particular book, and then we will ask you some questions as they come up.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here. I'm such a big fan for this podcast.
This is the first person who's appeared on here who's a fan of the podcast, Derek.
Okay, we're stamping this moment in time as well.
It happened.
Thank you.
It only took, 2 years?
This monograph actually developed from my PhD thesis. The reason I'm doing this work is because my personal experience. I'm one of the ethnic minority group called Sibo. Based on my personal experience, I encounter a lot of different, interesting, narrative about ethnic group that I belong to. And also, it's also about my education background. After I learned cultural study in Goldsmiths, and those cultural study theory particularly come from Foucault's idea about discourse, power, and knowledge, really make me to rethink about my experience in understanding my own ethnic identity. So I try to understand how history and the media take its role in influence how people's perception about their identity. That is what I want to do that is exactly the motivation of my work. And my argument in my book, this research actually is to try to unpack the construction of the very idea, the concept of 民族 in Chinese term, actually is ethnicity in English, but sometimes previously they translate in nationality. So you can see the dynamic in construct the knowledge of ethnicity in Chinese context.
So just for people who might not be familiar with the ethnic makeup of China, so we said that there are 56 ethnic groups, and the dominant ethnic group is Han Chinese. Is correct. Shibo might be one that people are not actually, a group that people are not actually familiar with, because it is a smaller group. Is that correct? Can you tell us a little bit about the Shibo group in China?
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for asking this question. Shibo ethnic minority group is one of the smallest ethnic minority group in China. Originally, they come from northeast China, but in 17th century, they migrate from northeast China to Xinjiang. And since then, they stationed there. So there are two large ethnic community for Shibo people in China. One is in Xinjiang, centralized in Chapcha area, which is near Yili city. Another group is in northeast China, in Liaoning province.
Now, what is the population of the Shibo group?
Is around 170,000 people.
Okay. So, I mean, it's interesting to me because my doctoral work was looking at indigenous language groups in North America, for example. So not directly on that, but included some of that. And some of the work that I've been doing lately with colleagues here in China has to do with language endangerment and revitalization work for ethnic minorities. So how is language involved in this issue? If I can sneak that question in as a linguist.
Do they have their own? Is there a Shibo language?
We do have our own language. The Shibo people in Chapcha area, they do speak our mother tongue in our everyday life. But the language is dying because of a lot of different reasons. Urbanization. I think that is a big problem faced by a lot of ethnic minority groups, not only in China, but faced commonly by a lot of other ethnic minority groups across the globe.
Yeah, worldwide, certainly. And also, language of education, languages of entertainment, encroachment. There's such a tight tie between these things, between language and culture and availability of resources, right? So now this is where I think your book makes a really interesting contribution, because you're talking about how ethnic minority peoples in general, but of course the Shibo specifically, use technology as a means to, I'm not sure, would you say resist or to continue
negotiate
the modern world? Maybe you can tell us a bit more about that.
Thank you so much for the question. It's really, really good. Actually, the China is a Shibo case is quite complicated. It's not directly resist against the Chinese culture in terms of achieving more cultural space, but at the same time, they do face the problem of cultural assimilation in west part of China, where Mandarin became the dominant language. The lack of resources to practice their own native language. So internet, especially social media like QQ and WeChat, become become alternative space where they can practice their own language. They can speak their own language. And most important for Shibo case is because they are remotely separate in different geographic location in China. So the cyberspace do give them a very strong tool for connect different community together. And that is very big important for Sibo people to actively incorporate WeChat and other social media at the first place, to learn language, to practice language, to find more space for them to meet new people. That is a very important reason for Sibo people to use social media.
Are there other kind of forms of material culture? So I noticed some images in your book. You include sort of a traditional house that's Sibo, for instance. Are there specific kinds of food associated with this ethnic group? So is it more than just language?
Yeah, it's more than language. For Sibo identity, language, of course, is a very important marker. The second is the history, the unique history. And third is the cultural practice.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Looking at your book then, I think before we go further into it, we have to actually define and explain this very interesting term that you use, which is something that I think a lot of non-Chinese people will be very new for them. And this is the term Minzu, because the title of your book is Minzu as Technology. Can you tell us a little bit about this term and what it actually means?
Minzu directly translated into English is ethnicity. Why I insist on using Minzu rather than ethnicity is because the idea of ethnicity, the idea of ethnic identity, based on my research is, especially for the case of Sibo, are heavily linked with state policy, linked with knowledge, linked with power. So my reason to insist use the original Chinese term of Minzu is try to unpack the power structure, the construction of the meaning of Minzu in Chinese context. I try to present a picture for us to have a dynamic understanding on how the idea of ethnicity, how the idea of nationality has been gradually constructed in different historical period of time in China in different contexts. That is an important reason for me to use the term of Minzu.
Can you tell us a bit about that? How has it changed over time? Because I find that quite fascinating, the way that words can be used and reclaimed in various ways and have very different connotations over time. Could you talk us through that historical involvement of the term?
Thank you for this question. The term
you always thank us for questions.
Because you guys
We're
always
delighted to ask them.
Very, very good question. The term actually invented in the late 19th century. Actually, the term has been picked up from Japanese minzuku. At the time in China, they need local idea for nation state to serve the mission to construct a new Chinese nation. So in its original form, the term of Minzu has very strong emphasis on racial component about nation state, one nation, one state. And because of Qing dynasty is not a homogenized nation states, they have...
What were the dates of the Qing dynasty? Can you just explain for people who are not so clear on Chinese history?
Right. Qing dynasty starts from 1644 until 1911. So in the last period of Qing dynasty and also a lot of revolutionary, they want to get a new idea for accommodate the new founding Republic of China, the nation state. Therefore, they borrow the Japanese term Minzuku into China to serve this political agenda. And because of China is not single one nation state, so the connotation of race bring a lot of problem back the time. So gradually, the interpretation of Minzu evolved, especially in the period of socialist period of time, where the idea heavily influenced by Soviet idea of Nalod, with Soviet idea of federal union within the country. So the connotation of Minzu gradually absorbed socialist understanding in terms of in terms of understand ethnic minority. It is the first time ethnic minority appear in the interpretation of 民族. And of course, when we step into after 1980, when the social and economic context had been changed, new meaning of 民族 emerged. So as I said, in different historical period of time, in the beginning of Chinese nation state, and then socialist period, and then current stage, each stage have new meaning for the interpretation of 民族. One of the example is a translation of the 民族. Very fascinating. Previously, before 1980, the interpretation, the translation of 民族 largely translate as nationality. But after a period of time, gradually, start from Chinese academic, we tend to use ethnic group or ethnicity to translate the term. So this is another example to reflect how the meaning of 民族 has been constructed in different period of time, subject to knowledge and power.
So it's almost like the English title of your book would be kind of ethnicity as technology.
Right.
Would that be correct?
Yeah.
Sort of.
But this is a really specific context. I mean, I find this really fascinating because I suspect from outside of China, most people just don't have this concept of an ethnic diversity existing within China. So there's the concept of a kind of monoculture, as well as in Japan as well. So it's interesting that the term was borrowed from there, considering in Japan, yes, there are recognized ethnic minorities, and many people will say even regional differences would come into play.
Although I think now actually the world is waking up to the fact that China is much more diverse, because we do see much more representation of minorities in Chinese media now. I'm thinking of things like the Spring Festival Gala, for instance, as well. So there is,
I think Lei can confirm, though, that there has been an internal recognition of diversity.
Yes.
It's what I'm talking about is from external. So when you think about people thinking about China, they may not recognize this as well. Although I am cognizant. I guess those festivals. Would you agree with that, Lei? Or?
Totally, absolutely. Actually, start from the new millennium, the new ideology, new set of thinking in understand ethnic composition in China has been emerged. We can say for the very term of cultural heritage, start from cultural tourism, from the state to the market. We embrace a multiculturalism idea, if you like. It's totally different with previous mentality to understand the situation of ethnic minority culture. Across different regions in China, in Guizhou, Sichuan, Yunnan, you can see ethnic tourism is a big thing in China, and the very big ideology to back up the presentation of ethnic minority culture, the ethnic tourism, it is multiculturalism. It is,
and education as well, because in many of those areas, trilingual or multilingual education is supported as official policy. Although I don't know how widespread that is. So.
Well, I know that our institution has actually been at the forefront of examining that trilingualism in China as well.
We do have some excellent scholars doing that, but let's not go too far beyond what Lei is doing. So we have a conception of 民族, and how do you negotiate calling this a technology then? Because that's kind of a different conception of a culture, even a kind of minority ethnic culture. So maybe you can explain that to our listeners.
Right. The choice of words of technology is not come from, in my book, it's not for machinery. It's not for machinery. The choice of words of technology actually is inspired, in my book, I inspired by Foucault. The word technology actually refers the Greek word technique. Basically is a system for organizing knowledge. Is a system of way of doing things to instruct us to sort up knowledge. So I use the term in a Foucauldian sense that the very concept of 民族 instruct us how to identify the ethnic culture. how to recognize us as ethnic subject. So that is my usage of the term technology in my book.
That's really interesting. It coincides a bit with the types of linguistic heritage of the type of linguistics I do. So Bronislaw Malinowski, as an anthropologist, talking about culture as a means of doing, but also in terms of the artifacts involved. So, I find this really, really fascinating.
One of the most interesting parts of your book for me was when you started talking about this sort of cyberspace and the way that ethnic minority people represent themselves in cyberspace and use cyberspace to sort of reclaim their sort of identity, I would say. And of course, you use Sibo as an example within this. Why do you think that Sibo was such an appropriate case study to use of this kind of cyberspace ethnicity?
The reason for me to look at Sibo's cyber activity is not by design. It is based on my experience, based on my ethnographic work. The cyberspace is really actively incorporated by the Sibo people, and a lot of their cultural practice.
Why is it so well incorporated by them?
I think it is the first medium which have low threshold in terms of accessibility. As minority people, ordinary person like you and me are able to use it compared to movie, compared to TV. And also the penetration of social media back the time already been very, very good, not only in east part of China, but west part of China. Every region of China have high penetration of ICT. So they can easily use social media to do a lot of things, to reconnect with friends or even do self-media.
Do you think that the Sibo do this more so than other ethnic groups?
Especially for Sibo, they do more compared to my ethnographic work and my literature review. Because the Sibo really want to re-educate themselves. Two things for them. One is they want to learn their language, like some Sibo people from Northeast China. The very big reason for them to go to online is to find resources in terms of language education. And there are plenty of them over there online. Second is they want to find history. Find the history, talk about them, because in other historical narrative, they find there's not enough. So for these big two reasons, the Sibo naturally use social media as an important media for them to achieve these two goals.
What were your specific findings? What do you think ultimately you added to the conversation and that we should take away from this book, examining Minzu as technology?
First, definitely cyberspace, definitely social media, ground agency, provide agency for ethnic minority people like Sibo to find alternative space to produce their culture, disseminate their culture, reconnect with their fellow peers. Definitely, they provide this valuable agency for ethnic minority people in terms of for their culture production. But on the other hand, based on my observation, social media also provide a new scenario, complicate the situation in terms of culture production, in terms of their identity construction, because all the cultural work, all the communication have to be mediated by the technology itself. Let me take one of example to illustrate my point. For the language education, Sibo people try to transliterate their language online because they find out this is the way for them to protect their spoken language, the original language that they practice in their everyday life.
So this is using a Roman alphabet. Right?
They use Roman alphabet to transliterate their language. Yeah. For that, they can communicate their language with each other. So this naturally also pose a problem for them, which is the traditional Sibo script gradually fade away for their everyday use. So social media also present another complicated situation for cultural preservation.
An interesting question along these lines is there any concern? I know internally among the Sibo it wouldn't be necessarily, but the idea of cultural production as performance. So in kind of multicultural situations, very often, Mary was mentioning what kind of foods or what kind of dress or things like that, where we tend to codify elements of culture, and it's almost a reductionist idea of what constitutes an ethnic grouping or identifying elements of a culture. Is there any concern of that by creating this kind of performative cultural element?
It is on online space. In order to present your culture, online is not free of power. It's not free of control. The sense of control, I mean, the sense of control influenced by the technology itself even. So for this type of new technical environment is also prioritize certain type of cultural performance, cultural representation.
Also the ones valued by an audience, right?
It is.
And so that audience may be ethnically internal, or it could be an external audience looking on to
in Lei's book, you did sort of pick up on the concept of not just Orientalism within the Chinese context, but also kind of the element of self-Orientalism as well that this can come into.
Exactly. In order to further communicate with other people, in order to get more visibility, there are certain level of self-orientalizing performance going on online space. This is continue my observation on Sibo online. My recent work on Ask Minority Wanhong, their performance on Douyin, exactly continue illustrate that point. So in the environment of Douyin, in order to get visibility in terms of follow the Douyin's algorithm, you definitely, according to my interview with some of Wanhong, you definitely need to strategically thinking about what type of contents you can get more traffic. So that is a way how technology regulate, right, or display your identity performance.
And as soon as you get a certain amount of traffic, you're receiving a certain amount of attention, which may further cause a kind of self-regulation, presumably.
Exactly.
That actually sort of prompts my next question, which was to ask, has there been any criticism of your book so far? Ultimately, I mean, is that sort of the main thread that you could see as being a critique of your conclusions here? Do you feel there's a slight sort of a slight danger of becoming too celebratory of what the cyberspace can offer for people? Because obviously the cyberspace also brings problems at the same time too. So would you say there are any kind of critiques of your articles so far?
My work specifically focuses on Sibo case, which is a very small ethnic minority group, whose problem is very unique in terms of language preservation, in terms of their history, in terms of their history. There could be a lot of different issues encountered by other ethnic group. And also my work is mainly on WeChat. There is a lot of other emerging platform, emerging problem, even more complicated current issue like algorithm. So my next level of research, I try to develop my research in a more bigger scope, into more update discussion in terms of how technology complicated the cultural representation. I already have worked on TikTok's algorithm. So next step, I'm going to work on Red Note. So basically, I'm trying to respond to critique in terms of my work is to contextualize on small ethnic minority group. I try to include more diverse story, diverse perspective into my observation.
That sounds like a really big project, Lei.
Yeah, phenomenally large, actually.
Because after I encounter with a lot of ethnic minority culture producer, I learned that one of my encounter with Paima Caidan, he teach me quite a lot about what happening in Tibetan case. So it is those continue encounter with ethnic minority culture producer encouraged me to include more and more perspective into my analysis. So overall, my observation is try to understand how the concept, how the idea of Minzu has been constructed by the technical environment and also involved with identity politics, try to find out agency which is we can achieve from the perspective of ordinary people and also from the perspective of culture producers.
And I guess there's an even larger question is there something here that is reflected not just of Minzu in the Chinese context, but of, ethnic minorities in general? So is there a kind of, and again, that might be a reductionist question, but it's a fascinating one, I think. So by expanding your study like this, I think you might be getting into some really interesting territory.
Yeah, there's a question of where you're going to draw the boundaries there because it's getting bigger and bigger, the way you construct it. But here's one question I do really want to ask about the reception of your work. Has there been any discussion about it or interest or response from the Shibo community itself?
Yes, I share my work with my participants, with my friends, because they helped me a lot during my ethnographic work, right? They all invite me to further investigate on other issues rather than only on language and history. There are lots of new things like Westward Culture Festival and cultural tourism in Chapcha area. So they want more research on their local community.
Is it
the visibility is not enough.
That was my next question. Is this a sort of understudied community in this way? Because I have to sort of say that before I met you as my colleague, I wasn't aware of this ethnic group. And as you said, it's one of the smaller ones in China out of the officially recognized 56 there. So it sounds like there is still much data to be discovered here.
It is. There are a lot of issues on ethnic minority with us to discover a lot of fascinating questions with the scholar to have serious discussion on it.
So if there's a takeaway from your book that you would like our readers to recognize, what have you hoped that people would draw from this particular work?
I really want to give people impression that the idea of Minzu is not imposed by a single party, by the government, by a single organization. The meaning of Minzu actually is dynamic constructed by multiple actors. By the politics, by the social structure, by the technology even. So I really encourage people to understand the dynamic meaning of Minzu. As a result, to encourage practitioners, scholars to see the potential of Minzu as a tool to bring more a cultural dialogue from different groups. So that is what I hope.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure you will succeed in that way, Lei. Do you have any future work coming out that we can look forward to?
Oh, thank you so much. As I said, continue my work on Weibo on WeChat. I work on Douyin's algorithm, and next work I try to work on ethnic minority identity and cultural production on RedNote.
We look forward to it. Thank you very much, Lei.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. This was fascinating.
It's been a real pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
With 110 academic staff from 22 countries and regions, the Faculty of Humanities and Social Science is committed to delivering world-class teaching and research with a growing focus on interdisciplinary projects. Our faculty includes the School of Economics, the School of Education and English, the School of International Communications, and the School of International Studies, as well as the Language Centre.
We are committed to internationally renowned and excellent research in a thriving transdisciplinary environment of outstanding individual and collective research. Our faculty is home to a number of groundbreaking projects, including but not limited to digital heritage, game cultures, the historical and contemporary Silk Roads, health economics, cognitive neuroscience of language, and gender studies.
The Faculty of Humanities and Social Science is also proud to host a high percentage of international staff who bring expertise to areas such as history, politics, journalism, media and film studies, education, English, micro and macroeconomics and more, as well as a wealth of experience from international universities.
We strive to offer an education and student experience reflecting the most up-to-date knowledge and achieve this through the close integration of teaching and research. Our research-led teaching places cutting-edge knowledge at the center of our curriculum, while our academic staff actively engage our students in their ongoing research activities.